I've been reviewing every single episode of Star Wars Rebels, and in this video, I'm covering Season 3. I've made a playlist where you can catch up on Seasons 1 and 2 if you haven't already. I quickly noticed how good Season 3 looks visually. It's subtle if you watch the show all in order, but the animation quality has definitely stepped up since Season 1, especially in the lighting and atmospheric detail. The crew also has a slightly refreshed character design. I do think this is my favorite of Sabine's hair colors. Not only must Ezra face Darth Maul again, we are also introduced to one of the best antagonists in Star Wars, Grand Admiral Thrawn. In Season 2, the rebellion grew, but in Season 3, Thrawn is here to knock them down a peg. His determination to understand the rebels in order to defeat them creates a great overarching storyline with fresh challenges for the Ghost Crew. This time, the Empire might actually be a few steps ahead of them instead of the other way around. My favorite part of this season is actually Kallus's character arc. I think it's my favorite part of all of Rebels. So without further ado, let's get into it. Season 3, Episode 1, Steps into Shadow, Part 1. Immediately, Ezra's haircut signifies a vibe shift for this season. He's clearly growing up. He's taller, his voice is a bit deeper, and his force wielding is much more effortless. He still jokes around, but also seems much more on edge. The new green lightsaber is pretty cool though. I think it's supposed to parallel Luke's second green lightsaber in Return of the Jedi. Like Luke, some of the suspense in these first couple episodes is whether Ezra's going to give in to the dark side or not.
When did Kanan teach you that?
He didn't.
The concerned look on Sabine's face is very telling. This is some dark stuff Ezra is not supposed to know how to do. After tapping into the dark side at the end of Season 2, Ezra seems to have grown almost addicted to it. With Kanan becoming more absent after the loss of his sight, Ezra has been learning from the Sith holocron instead. The holocron demonstrates some classic manipulation tactics, isolating and convincing Ezra that no one else understands him. The knowledge he's learning is even paying off, as Commander Sato gives him a promotion for his success in rescuing Hondo. After how well they were getting along in Season 2, it's sad to watch Ezra and Kanan yell at each other like this. Kanan's right that Ezra has been relying on the easy way of using his anger, even if it is from a desire for good. But Kanan also needs to step back up to guide his student again, to come to terms with what's happened to him and move forward. And here to help him with that is a mysterious voice he keeps hearing. The Bendu is so interesting. He's in tune with the Force, but does not call himself a wielder of it. And he doesn't choose one side over the other, as symbolized by his gray eyes. Bendu is a kind of grand, mythical, sphinx-like creature with a distant, echoing voice, who gives Kanan wisdom, advice, and something like therapy. The Jedi is about to get a serious perspective shift.
An object cannot make you good or evil.
That's an interesting one, which I'm gonna philosophically disagree with, actually. Objects are made with design and intent, some being more morally obvious than others. The Sith holocron was definitely made with arguably evil intent, so despite Ezra's best efforts to use it for good, the purpose of the object and the nature of its contents is working against him. Sure, Ezra brings his own flaws and desires to it as well, but the holocron is not a neutral object. It is affecting Ezra for the worse. And this is why Kanan refuses to use the holocron again in Episode 3. I don't know if we're supposed to agree with Bendu or not here, but I thought it was a great discussion point. For the first time since she was mentioned back in Season 1, we finally meet Governor Pryce. But one of the best villains in Star Wars is finally here. Thrawn was a character originally created by Timothy Zahn in his book series, which I actually read for the first time last year. Lars Mikkelsen might be one of the greatest casting choices ever. His soft voice for Thrawn is so perfect, and it's not monotone but just barely expressive enough. As far as the food chain of the Empire goes, Thrawn is up there. A Grand Admiral recently promoted by the Emperor himself for clearing rebels out of an entire sector spells great potential danger for our crew. Notice that Kallus is the only one to disapprove of Thrawn's civilian casualty numbers. Season 3, Episode 2, Steps into Shadow, Part 2. With Hondo's selective intel and Ezra's reckless fury, this mission is not looking particularly great so far. The deconstructor droid is pretty gnarly. With Bendu's prompting, Kanan starts to focus on what he can sense, like sound and vibration, but also new ways of sensing through the Force. Only when he can self-reflect, recognize his own fear and grief, does Kanan understand how to see. He must reconnect with the Force and with other beings again, not withdraw and run away. This experience gets a little philosophical and unclear, but that's not new in the show at this point. I still find it very interesting.
Yeah, get ready for another demotion.
I forgot the Bromtitus bit was that obvious. Maybe rushing a recon mission into a last-minute stealing operation wasn't Ezra's greatest idea. This low point where they're all very in trouble is an important wake-up call for him. In the end, Ezra accepts the consequences and apologizes for messing up and using the holocron. It was also at this low point that Kanan came back to be there for him. The final scene between those two is very sweet.
I fight so hard to gain so little.
Yeah, she's right. This was all for just like 5 bombers, wasn't it? That's not even a dent in the Empire's resources. Season 3, Episode 3, The Holocrons of Fate. Ezra might have woken up to how he was acting in the previous episode, but he's still confused why else Yoda would have sent them to Malachor if not for the holocron. That is something we never get a clear answer to, do we? Someone else is still interested in the holocron though, and is gonna use the lives of the Ghost Crew to make sure he gets it. I'll just keep saying it. Maul is so good to watch. He's so quietly menacing, just as much in Rebels as he was in Clone Wars, but the key word I would use for Maul in this show is desperate. The fact that he doesn't really have any resources or allies anymore makes him more reckless and unpredictable. Not quite as coldly calculated as Clone Wars Maul. This is a Maul who's lost everything.
Caleb Doom.
Yo, how does he know Kanan's real name? That's the first time that lore has been dropped in the show. I really like listening to Bendu. His dialogue is always somehow both cryptic and revealing, and often also dryly humorous. I also like the idea of both holocrons united giving you ultimate clarity. It increases the stakes of Ezra and Kanan's decision to let Maul use it. Whatever he wants to know could be dangerous.
Why take his weapon?
He's got to learn how to solve problems without it.
A very Anakin and Obi-Wan moment there. This challenge is a good way to help Ezra trust Kanan again, and to forgive himself too. It is a good lesson that getting stuck on your mistakes isn't gonna fix them. The grace Kanan shows Ezra is what he needed to move on. I feel like I've never seen them hug like that. It's really sweet. Dang, Maul really wants Ezra to be his apprentice. This holocron sequence is really cool though. Everything going so overly bright is jarring in a good way. This is a kind of power we've never seen before.
What's that?
Hope.
Not what I would have expected Maul to say. He's not looking for straight up power, but something to believe in.
Twin sons.
He lives.
I know what that means, even though they don't. Just a fascinating episode, and having this so early in the season really gets you hooked on where it's going next. Season 3, Episode 4, The Antilles Extraction. It's fun to see Wedge Antilles as an Imperial cadet. This episode fills in the story of how he joined the rebellion.
Agent Kallus, you may begin. My hope is that I may teach you something today.
Ooh, do you see that look on Kallus's face? That's so funny. Ezra is having to learn something that Kanan has had to learn too. Let go of what you can't control and actually trust the people you say you trust. Ezra is more of a doer than Kanan, so I can see why this would be even harder for him. He'd rather just take the risk himself than be stuck on the sidelines. It is a good surprising twist that they fail to get Sabine and the defecting pilots out at first. The stakes get much higher after they get caught.
Tell Garazeb Aurelius, we're even.
Yes! Kallus coming in clutch. I freaking love Season 3 Kallus. This is good stuff, and I'm savoring every bit I get. This episode is solid, but it's mostly stuff aside from what Sabine is actually doing that's most interesting to me. Season 3, Episode 5, Hera's Heroes. The Kalikori is a cool addition to Twilight culture.
Family history is living art.
As Sabine calls it. It's really sweet that the crew is immediately ready to rescue something so important to Hera and her family. Her home is a really uniquely beautiful design. And yep, there's a reason Cham was caught off guard by better Imperial tactics. All of Thrawn's dialogue in this episode is excellent, and so important for understanding his character and why he's such a threat to the rebellion. I find Thrawn captivating in a similar way to Maul, in that he's so quietly menacing, but Thrawn is much more put together and straightforward. He's also unlike many Imperials in that he seems to genuinely work for results over personal glory, though that doesn't mean he has no ego. And he's unique in that he's patient enough to let the rebels go, to just be satisfied with what he learned about them. Thrawn gives off the impression that he'd never let emotion get the better of him, but right here it surprisingly does for a moment. You see his appreciation for art is authentic, and he cannot stand people he sees as wasteful. Slavin is annoying though, I do not blame him. Overall, I really enjoyed this episode. Great introduction to who Thrawn is. It also says a lot about Cham that he's immediately willing to sacrifice himself for his daughter. Season 3, Episode 6, The Last Battle. On a supply mission to an old Clone Wars transport ship, Rex and the crew run into some working Separatist battle droids. This episode is intended to explore Rex's PTSD and give him some closure on the war. It's also just a fun concept, a tactical droid that still doesn't want to admit defeat. I enjoy watching Rex and Kanan teach Ezra the ropes of a real Clone Wars-style battle, and he's enjoying it too, until Rex gets very serious with him.
Show me!
This is not a game! This is life and death! Every move you make affects the rest of us.
Rex is kind of back in his element in this episode, but this mock battle is also bringing up a lot of emotional memories.
The Clone War ended, but why? If none of you won, who did?
Ezra's so right. Both the True Republic and the Separatists ended up weakened enough to allow the Empire to rise. The only person who really won was Palpatine, the person who played and destroyed both sides and ended up with all the power. They don't really know about that last bit, but I don't think anyone in Star Wars has explicitly put the rest of that together before, other than Maul, of course, who was in on some of Sidious's plan. Rex's dialogue to Ezra at the end does feel a little corny. I think the encounter was supposed to feel more symbolically powerful than it actually does. Aw, the Clone Wars-y outro is really fun though. Season 3, Episode 7, Imperial Super Commandos. Finally, we come back to the fact that Fen Rao has basically been the rebels' prisoner all this time. Through him, we see more of this unique Mandalorian combination, stubborn self-interest along with prejudice toward other factions. And with the introduction of Gar Saxon, we learn that some Mandalorians have sold out to the Empire way more than the Protectors did. Gar Saxon also appears in Clone Wars Season 7. Rao says he's Clan Vizsla, so Saxon was retconned into being one of the Death Watch Mandalorians that joined Maul.
Your only advantage is that they don't know about you yet.
You still have his lightsaber.
That might just save his life.
Rao really is making sense here. He might have tried to turn on Sabine and Ezra, but it was out of loyalty to his people, and it is tragic that they were wiped out by the Empire after he left. He hates the rebels for keeping him away at first, but eventually realizes they also saved his life by doing so. I think Rao is a pretty interesting and complicated character for the little amount of screen time he's had in the show. Ezra really tries his hardest to talk his way out of this, but Saxon is cleverer than most Imperials Ezra has tricked. Overall, in this episode, Ezra's role is mostly an audience stand-in who can ask questions and joke that
Mandalorians are crazy.
yes, Sabine gets herself a jetpack. She and Ezra flying through the canyons is some very fun action, and it's very satisfying to watch her fight Saxon. I'm glad Rao finally comes around to joining the rebels. Sabine really earned his respect by standing up to Saxon. Something about this episode feels a little awkwardly paced. but I'm always here to learn more about the Mandalorians. This is also the start of Season 3 focusing more on Sabine. Now that we're finally getting into the depths of her backstory and what really happened to her family, she's becoming a really cool character. Season 3, Episode 8, Iron Squadron.
Sounds like a ship full of Ezras.
Pretty accurate, to be fair. Commander Sato's nephew is recklessly cocky like Ezra used to be. Mart and his friends are a contrast to current Ezra, to show how much he really has grown up. Although that means Iron Squadron is just a little annoying at first.
How we choose to fight is just as important as what we fight for.
Ezra has learned the lesson Yoda wanted him to back in the temple in Season 2. These naive, eager kids don't realize that they're needlessly throwing their lives away and underestimating the enemy. Mart must learn that flying solo is not gonna work against the Empire. We see Thrawn testing the capability of the Ghost crew, and also testing Admiral Constantine. This guy is just constantly playing 4D chess. This is just an okay rescue mission. Not a very remarkable or important episode, really. Season 3, Episode 9, The Win Kathu Job. As Morgan is actually not that bad in this episode. It is a funny twist that he and Hondo are working together. Hondo is again hilarious in this episode, as always.
Now, don't be blind to this amazing business opportunity. Oh, sorry.
The obvious point of this episode is for Ezra to realize how much Hondo deceives them, and doesn't really care about anyone except himself. It's admirable how much he wanted to believe Hondo was a real friend they could rely on, but I do feel like he should have realized this already. This is a unique mission with some interesting problems to solve. As far as the repeated supply run plot goes, secret activating droids is a classic addition to a Star Wars heist. But literally everyone is yelling at each other pretty much the whole time. Okay, the payoff that Ezra cut open the door unnecessarily and then it comes back to bite them is really good. And that's kinda all I got to say. Season 3, Episode 10, An Inside Man. We're back to my favorite plotline. The rebels check back in on Lothal and discover that Ryder and Ezra's family friend Sumar have infiltrated the Imperial factory, sabotaging their vehicle construction. When Thrawn investigates, however, you know they're not gonna get away with it. Oh my gosh, he's actually fully dead. I forgot about that. Kallus's little facial expressions continue to be important. Kallus is so much more chill, subdued, thoughtful than he was in seasons 1 and 2. Like he's not desperate for success anymore, and also choosing his words more carefully, perhaps.
Your droid trusts me.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
But yay! Kallus is officially a rebel. I wish we got more of his journey to that decision, but the details sprinkled into Season 3 that we do have leading up to this episode are still great.
Okay.
Ezra!
What? That is convincing.
Yeah, but I was gonna do it.
That's a classic. Kallus probably does deserve to be tossed around a bit for what he did in the first 2 seasons, but with his help, the rebels successfully escape with Thrawn's secret plans for a new shielded TIE fighter. In the midst of that failure, however, Thrawn isolated an Imperial traitor as the missing variable. The final scene makes me so nervous for him. The organ outro is so epic though. I've noticed that is Thrawn's theme music throughout this season.
Caravast. I must have recruited him. You know, accidentally.
I love Zeb's reaction. How did Kallus become Fulcrum anyway? Who did he get in contact with to get the code phrase? Or did he just figure it out himself? Season 3, Episode 11, Visions and Voices. Maul is still not giving up on making Ezra his apprentice. Their minds have been linked in some way after they looked into the holocrons together. This scene when Ezra wakes up shows us that while he is more mature about it now, Ezra still has a tendency to pretend he's fine and not want to talk about what's bothering him. I understand it's really not fun to feel crazy though. The moment he almost attacks someone is pretty intense. Thankfully, it turns out Ezra wasn't entirely crazy. Of course, the Master Manipulator uses the location of the rebel base against them, And even though he gives them like no information about his plan, Kanan and Ezra know they really have no other option here. I love protective dad Kanan in this episode. He trusts Ezra to be okay on his own, but also tracks his wrist comm as a backup. Ooh, and we're going to Dathomir. Maul's plan is to tap into some remnant of Night Sister magic. He's been using their deserted home as a hideout already. Oh my gosh, the Obi-Wan and Satine theme playing when you see the stained glass art that was in Satine's throne room that Maul scratched over. Oh, and there's the Darksaber. Maul thought the info he and Ezra wanted to know got mixed up in the other's head, but really they each got a piece of the same answer to both their questions. Ezra sees that Obi-Wan Kenobi is alive, but doesn't understand where. Maul, however, knows exactly what desert planet with twin suns the Jedi must be on, the same one where he met Anakin. This episode further emphasizes just how desperate Maul is, when we see his hideout full of things he's holding onto from the past, when we learn he promised the Night Sisters vessels in return for knowledge, and after this moment in particular.
Our futures converge on a planet with 2 suns. We can walk that path together as friends, as brothers.
And there, the mask finally breaks. He latched on to Ezra as someone he could find purpose in teaching, someone he felt did understand him, and Maul feels genuinely betrayed when Ezra won't join him. Oh yeah, Kanan and Sabine getting possessed by the Night Sister spirits is scary too. Ezra had a good plan to get them out though. And yep, Sabine knows what that weapon is. Season 3, Episode 12, Ghosts of Geonosis, Part 1. The Ghost crew returns to the now empty planet of Geonosis. Their mission isn't just to investigate, but to find the first rebel team that did, led by Saw Gerrera. Rex talks about his history with Saw, referring to the Clone Wars Season 5 arc where he helped train the Onderon rebels. And we go back to an entrance to the underground catacombs that looks a lot like where Obi-Wan and Anakin followed Luminara in Season 2. Kanan wants to leave when he feels they're in over their head, and Ezra wants to push on with the mission no matter what. Kanan's strong feelings of unease add some tension to the episode. This is a good example of how Ezra's learned to stop, think, and listen rather than rush into things, and because of that, they finally catch one last Geonosian, the one controlling the battle droids they keep running into. And to be continued. Kind of a slow, uneventful episode, honestly. It's just building up the mystery that we'll get to in the next episode. Season 3, Episode 13, Ghosts of Geonosis, Part 2. Bro, the bug straight up draws the Death Star and they have no idea. This arc is great for connecting Clone Wars Saw Gerrera to the more intense, insane character we know from live action. We see Ezra's Jedi kindness contrasted with Saw's aggressive desperation. It's not like Saw's heart is in the wrong place, per se. It's how he goes about getting what he wants and justifying it. He's determined to expect the worst and act accordingly. I think the fact that we, the audience, know this is about the Death Star helps you empathize with Saw's fear of what the Empire built on Geonosis and what could happen if they don't find out what it is. Though, just because their leader joined the Separatists doesn't mean the Geonosians don't deserve to live. Eventually, the crew and Rex get through to Saw's humanity, and he agrees to let the Geonosian go when they find the evidence of the poisonous gas canisters. Bummer they lost those in the end, cause that'd probably be a bit much to retcon. I do feel like the dialogue gets a little close to heavy-handed about Saw's character, but at least he is a very interesting one. The Empire shooting down on them in the chasm was a pretty fun and well-done action sequence. This arc is fine, but not outstanding. Hey, at least the random Imperial character model budget has gone up. Season 3, Episode 14, Warhead. I'm a little sad Zeb doesn't have much going on in Season 3. I guess he already dealt with his past and had his arc with Kallus in Season 2, so he doesn't have a clear direction after that.
No, this is all wrong. Rations in the munitions section.
Every rebellion needs an AP5, for real. While Zeb definitely enjoys joking around while he can, he does take his responsibility as captain of security very seriously, as well as not betraying Hera's trust. This infiltrator droid gets scary in kill mode. Zeb is a big guy, so I do get worried when he's actually struggling to take it down for a while. The high contrast lighting at night as they follow the trail of dismantled droids adds a slight horror flavor to the action. This episode isn't that deep and does feel a bit like a filler, but it's not bad. Zeb and AP5 are a very entertaining dynamic.
I'll be in the command center.
Doing what?
Commanding!
The rebels have won this battle, but the war will be ours.
Ooh, that gives me chills. Thrawn did get very close to discovering the rebel base in this episode. Season 3, Episode 15, Trials of the Darksaber. I love hearing more history of the Darksaber, and it was a really cool stylistic choice to do it through the animated shadows. As Pre Vizsla referenced in the Clone Wars, the Darksaber was created by Tar Vizsla, the first Mandalorian Jedi, later stolen from the temple and used by House Vizsla to rule over all of Mandalore. Fen Rao seems quite excited by the possibility of Sabine using it to reunite her house again, to raise an army against the Empire. Sabine, however, is not at all excited. Hera and Kanan do see what a valuable opportunity this could be for the rebels, and Sabine is willing to listen because she really means it when she says they are her family now. However, stubborn, impatient, blast through your problems Sabine has quite the learning curve to get over in order to use the Darksaber properly. I am impressed with how generally mature Ezra is about this. He empathizes with how hard lightsaber training is at first, and wants Sabine to succeed. There's so much interesting dialogue in this episode though, and it's all so revealing for Sabine's character.
Sabine is blocked. Her mind is conflicted. She's so expressive and yet so tightly wound.
That's such a great analysis, and yet Kanan is still struggling to figure out how to teach Sabine. He seems too focused on telling Sabine that her mindset is wrong, without trying to get to the bottom of why. When Sabine opens up to Ezra, we finally see a glimpse of just how much she's been holding in. Part of her feels guilty for leaving her family, but she's also so deeply hurt that they see her as a traitor. She feels like Rao and Kanan have such high expectations of her, but have no idea how she feels. She doesn't even want to talk about how she feels, to let her guard down and face her problems. All that complicated inner turmoil is why Kanan senses that she's blocked and unbalanced, as I'm sure Bendu can tell as well.
Her family hurt her more than any sword could. You don't see it because she doesn't want you to.
Hera is especially insightful about all this. She sees the inner wall that Sabine still hasn't let down, and she sees the fear driving Kanan that he won't admit. Hera also knows exactly what it's like to walk away from your family and for them to let you. When Sabine comes back, Kanan's mask is off, showing that he's letting his guard down as well. How hard it was for them to get along earlier makes them finally figuring it out that much more satisfying. The night setting and atmospheric score helps make this training fight really cool. I like Kanan's explanation of how a lightsaber works. Your own thoughts and emotions affect how heavy it feels.
You're not fighting me. You're fighting yourself. And losing.
And now Kanan is getting to the bottom of why, naming what Sabine is telling herself to help her face it and be honest about it. It's really a kind of cathartic therapy fight. And finally Sabine opens up about one more thing, the guilt at the heart of her struggles. Sabine built weapons for the Empire that were used to destroy and enslave her planet. She tried to make up for what she did, and her family didn't stand with her. She had to leave because she didn't really have a choice. When Sabine breaks down, I really wanted to cry with her. Dang, I had a lot to say about this episode. There's so much going on and it's really deep and emotional and so well written. Season 3, Episode 16, Legacy of Mandalore. This is part 2 of Sabine's arc, and we're going to her family home on the planet Cronest. I really like the icy landscape and design of their house. It's a very cool aesthetic that's also consistent with the Mandalorian style we've seen before. Sabine's mother, Ursa Wren, is a little intense, and seems obsessed with preserving Clan Wren's status and honor. But we come to see it is deeper than that. She is also just trying to protect the lives of her people. Sabine is totally justified in feeling hurt and abandoned by her mother, but maybe it was more misunderstanding than intention. Ursa chose to ally with the Empire, including sending her son to serve Gar Saxon, but that's because the life of Sabine's father is being used to keep Clan Wren in submission.
Always putting power and politics before your own family?
Everything I do is to protect my family, Sabine.
They're both right, and the issue is very complicated. Ursa Wren also appeared in the Clone Wars Season 7, fighting alongside Bo-Katan against Gar Saxon and Maul. Maybe she had to do a lot to remedy that in Saxon's eyes as well. Sabine's brother Tristan has inherited his mother's desire for status and respect, and he's also willing to do anything to protect his father. He says he doesn't personally see Sabine as a traitor, but it's about the fact that everyone else does. However, the second Tristan realizes his loyalty hasn't done anything to ensure that Saxon keeps his word, he's ready to fight for his family instead. Sabine's duel with Saxon is an epic finale with solid choreography. Sabine has learned to use her Mandalorian gear and lightsaber technique together. She fights with Mandalorian honor, but also spares Saxon with Jedi mercy, which she learned from Kanan. The episode ends with Ursa Wren being convinced by her daughter's strength to change her allegiance. Clan Wren isn't quite ready to join the rebellion, but the seeds have been planted. I do remember the first time I watched this episode, I kind of had no idea what was going on. And is it not weird that other clans hate Sabine for designing a weapon for the Empire, but she's also a traitor for not joining the Empire? Or is that just two different perspectives? Mandalorian politics is very complicated, and so are every character's motivations. I like that everyone feels so real and fleshed out, but I wish it didn't take me quite so much brainpower to sort through what's going on. This show introduces several factions and dynamics, and maybe it's a personal problem, but I just really want to understand because I do find this lore so interesting and compelling. Season 3, Episode 17, Through Imperial Eyes. Y'all, I love Kallus's spy arc so much. Very interesting POV shot to start. It immerses you in the character and tells you exactly whose perspective this episode is going to focus on. I guess it does fit the title. The subtle eyebrow raise when he sees Ezra is so funny. Kallus isn't exactly happy to see him, cause pretending not to recognize Ezra seriously risks exposing him as a spy. And he's not thrilled about getting rescued against his will. But it shows how much the rebels value his intel that they'd make the effort to get him out. It is funny to watch Ezra and Kallus reluctantly work together the whole episode. We do see Ezra trust him more and more throughout the episode. Seeing Thrawn train with sentry droids adds another level to how threatening he is. He's not just a brain who cares about information. Thrawn is also taking this spy issue very seriously, as shown by the arrival of Yularen from the Clone Wars. He's now an ISB colonel, and Kallus was one of his best students. Fun fact, Yularen also appears in the ISB in Andor. I guess it shouldn't be a surprise that Yularen would be someone to embrace the Empire. We see he very much values order, but I'd have to go back and pay more attention to say more about his character for sure. Kallus realizes he doesn't have long before he's discovered, so decides to risk taking things into his own hands. He manipulates the eager-for-approval Lieutenant List into thinking Price is the traitor, while at the same time framing List as the spy and also rescuing Ezra. Kallus even takes the risk of removing the rebel base from Thrawn's ever-narrowing list, and sets the Admiral's own sentry droids on him. It's very engaging to watch Kallus manage to escape the eyes of both Thrawn and Yularen with some very clever quick thinking. I do kind of feel bad for List. Believing his cover saved, Kallus decides not to leave. Unfortunately, he's not as successful as he thinks. Thrawn identifies Ezra's helmet as Sabine's art style, and infers that Kallus must have recognized Ezra and said nothing. It's even more scary that Kallus believes he's safe when he isn't, that Thrawn doesn't want to out him yet, but watch and use Kallus to find the rebels. A great suspenseful episode, I love watching it. Season 3, Episode 18, Secret Cargo. Andor Season 2 connects directly to this episode, expanding on the Gorman massacre and Mon Mothma's speech to the Senate denouncing Palpatine. It's shortly after that speech and Mon's escape with Cassian that the Ghost Crew meets up with Gold Squadron. We see the two rebel groups rubbing each other the wrong way a little.
We don't mind doing things the hard way.
That does really sum up the Ghost Crew. They're a bit more willing to just do what they can against the Empire now, while this group is more about planning and building for the future. As always, Thrawn predicts exactly what Hera would do to get Senator Mothma out of the sector, and we get a first look at his new prototype TIE fighter. The Nebula is a very cool setting for a classic Star Wars space chase, and when they use it to attack the Imperial destroyers, we get some pretty epic visuals. Also fun to watch Ezra fly a Y-Wing. I like how this episode connects to the original trilogy, and now Andor, and shows the early stages of the rebellion uniting. It's a decently suspenseful situation, but overall, not the most interesting episode to watch. And you just don't get enough time with Mon, who's already a more restrained personality, for her to actually be that interesting either. Season 3, Episode 19, Double Agent Droid.
I will have you know anything you can do, I can do better. Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
I know that song reference, but I don't know what that song's from. AP5's digs at Chopper and inflated ego are funny, but the competition with Chopper is a little excessive for most of this episode. Yo, it's Josh Gad. He's kind of an entertaining, diabolical villain. It is silly that what makes Chopper suspicious is that he's being nice to them. They really could not have picked a worse droid to sabotage, and still it almost ended up really bad for the rebels.
I do not feel alone. It's easy to see.
One of the most random, hilarious moments in the whole show. Ooh, Hera straight up blew them up. Her angry mom energy came out for real. This is just a goofy droid side quest episode. I've really got nothing else to say about it. Season 3, Episode 20, Twin Sons.
Kenobi!
Sam Witwer is an insanely good voice actor. Oh my gosh, I'm blown away every time. Maul has been wandering across the desert of Tatooine, losing his mind looking for Obi-Wan. So he goes back to what he knows. The way to find a Jedi is to take advantage of their compassion. With a sliver of a holocron left, Maul calls to Ezra and lures the kid there as bait for Kenobi. Ezra rushes off to end up completely in over his head, lost and alone in the middle of the desert wasteland, his ship destroyed, with Maul continuing to manipulate him. Thankfully, Obi-Wan finds him first. Obi-Wan's dialogue with Ezra is so interesting. Obi-Wan realizes that Maul messed with things he shouldn't have, manipulating Ezra's desires as well as the actual truth. I don't totally understand everything he's saying, but it feels very significant in a more mystical, fate kind of way.
Which has led you here, where you should never have been.
Obi-Wan does give a very certain point of view statement here as well.
The truth is often what we make of it.
The holocrons may not tell you absolute truth. They're affected by what you want to see. There is some fantastic detail in how this brief duel between Maul and Obi-Wan was designed. I'll let the expert Sam Witwer say it first.
First thing Obi-Wan does is he does this, sort of his kid self. He turns into Ewan McGregor for a second and then takes a breath and goes, oh, no, that was the mistake. That's the guy that fought in the war. We learned that was not the way to go, and he goes to the Alec Guinness pose. And then he's like, let's see if I can play the same trick on Maul. And then he assumes the Qui-Gon Jinn pose, thus cueing Maul up to try the same move that he tried on Qui-Gon. I mean, it's a very interesting interplay between the two. You're like, move, counter move, psychological game.
Obi-Wan has grown and changed in ways that Maul has not. He cannot be manipulated anymore. The fact that Maul is defeated in just a few swings shows how much disparity has truly grown between them. I think Obi-Wan knew Maul would not leave unless one of them was defeated, and he could not let Maul go with the knowledge that he was indeed protecting someone. It's surprisingly moving how Obi-Wan holds Maul as he dies, with respect and empathy toward this enemy who murdered both Qui-Gon and Satine. But even in Clone Wars Season 7, Obi-Wan had already moved beyond revenge. And as Maul dies, Obi-Wan gives this tortured, desperate monster perhaps the first sense of peace he's felt in his entire life. The answer to Maul's question is Luke Skywalker, the one who will end the reign of the Sith. Here, Maul's story ends. Obi-Wan calling Luke the Chosen One is also very telling. He thinks the Jedi Council was wrong about it being Anakin because he ended up destroying the Jedi.
You were the Chosen One!
Maybe the prophecy is open to interpretation, but from what I know, George Lucas tried to make it clear that Anakin really was the Chosen One. Obi-Wan still doesn't understand Anakin's purpose in the Force, and would never have predicted that Luke would destroy the Sith by turning Vader back to the light rather than killing him. There's so many little things to analyze in this episode, but it's actually relatively chill and uneventful when it comes to the pacing. Not a bad thing at all in this case. It works for this episode that slows down and takes a breath before the season finale. It's such a cool episode that connects Clone Wars and the original trilogy, and manages to bring all these characters together without ruining anything, but meaningfully adding to their stories. I love that it ends with the binary sunset moment. Season 3, Episode 21, 0 Hour, Part 1. Ezra and Kanan's conversation is really sweet, and a nice culmination of all they've been through together. General Dodonna is here, one of the rebel leaders from A New Hope. Everything really seems to be coming together for the rebellion, but the big mission they've been building towards this season is now completely undermined by Thrawn's knowledge of it. Not only that, he's about to figure out the location of their base and ambush them first. Bruh, this scene gives me chills. Poor Kallus, in his attempt to warn the rebels, gave Thrawn the last piece he needed to find them.
I'm not accepting surrenders at this time. I want you to know failure, utter defeat, and that it is I who delivers it crashing down upon you.
Thrawn is not here to play games. Kallus just continuing to throw snarky comments at him is so funny. He's doing his best to mess with Thrawn in any way he possibly can. I love that we keep coming back to his reaction to everything that happens in this battle. Bendu is not happy that the Empire is here. He's so determined to remain the one in the middle that he would sit by and let the planet burn down around him rather than choose a side. But Kanan calling him a coward triggered something in him. Vanishing in an ominous cloud is crazy though. The gravity well that pulls ships out of hyperspace that they discovered in Season 2 is now coming into play here. Thankfully, Admiral Constantine's ego gets the better of him, and Commander Sato's sacrifice allows Ezra to escape and find help. Great beginning to a great finale. Season 3, Episode 22, 0 Hour, Part 2. Dang, the shots looking up at the laser fire raining down on them is so epic, and the music during that sequence is really good. I really feel Hera's fear for Kanan as well.
I've been in your position before, only to have these rebels pull a victory from certain defeat.
You and I are not the same, Kallus, as these rebels are about to learn.
Unfortunately, Thrawn is not wrong, but also neither is Kallus. Ezra successfully recruits some Mandalorians from Clan Ren, and Sabine's strategizing skills definitely come in handy. Only Kanan knows what's about to happen when he sees that storm. Bendu raining down lightning from the skies is crazy, and Thrawn could not have predicted that at all. Bendu later telling him about his eventual defeat is direct foreshadowing for the show's ultimate finale as well.
Like many arms surrounding you in a cold embrace.
Thrawn has no openness to the Force and does not understand its power, or what Bendu means when he says Thrawn cannot truly destroy him. I'm assuming that was a becoming one with the Force moment. Aw, they pick Kallus up with no hesitation, and him and Kanan's interaction is really sweet. So glad to see him finally safe. This just feels like a classic epic Star Wars battle with lots of interesting strategy at play that's still easy enough to understand. Underdog rebels outsmarting an empire that's too proud to see how they could be defeated. Even Grand Admiral Thrawn isn't immune to that hubris. And that's kinda all I have to say about this episode. Great action, great story, great season finale. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, subscribe to follow the rest of the series. Season 3 has some seriously epic stuff that was a lot of fun to analyze, as always. I'm definitely doing a video on Maul Shadow Lord as soon as I can, after all the episodes are out. So look forward to that sometime in May. I'm super excited for that new show. It's looking really cool so far. Until then, may the Force be with you.